Hey there, welcome to Hiker Homily. You ever just been sitting around and with your pals and like, hey, what do you use as a base layer? No, you don't do that one. Okay, never mind then. Oh. I do want to talk about base layers in this episode because it is one of those things that you hear it thrown around all the time. Oh yeah, I use such and such as a base layer. Oh, my base layer. Hey, anybody got a good idea on a base layer? But for a lot of beginning backpackers, I know even way back when I started in the olden days, and there's some people out there, dude, you ain't that old. I know there's some hikers out there in some of the groups, the 55 plus group. Yeah, I'm barely making 55, and some of you are in your 70s. I get it. But for me, it was the olden days, back in the late 70s, early 80s when I started. I don't know what the heck that meant. What the heck is a base layer? So we're going to talk about that. For beginning backpackers, what is a base layer and some suggestions for a good base layer for different conditions? Well, basically, in a nutshell, the base layer is the layer of clothing that is right on your skin when you are backpacking. Now, for some of you, depending on the conditions and how your comfort level is and where you're hiking and the temperatures, that may be the only layer you wear. For a long time, when I backpacked in the Sierras, I didn't have layers. I would layer in the evening when it got cold, but for actually backpacking and stuff, I had a t-shirt on, sometimes gasp. I even had denim pants. Yeah, I know, it wasn't hiking pants, it was blue jeans. I was crazy back then. But that was pretty much my layer, and that would be about it. So sometimes your base layer is the only layer you're gonna wear. It depends on the conditions, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But basically, that's the definition of a base layer. It is the layer of clothing when you're out backpacking or running, hiking, whatever kind of activity like that you're doing. That is right close to next to the skin. Okay. For the most part, it's your foundation layer. So it should be something that helps keep that skin dry, and it should be lightweight, and it should have the ability to wick away moisture. Okay, and not just get wet and sit there. So again, I did a whole hiker homily on the war on cotton. Even though I don't have a war on cotton, I like cotton shirts. This is a cotton shirt. It's nice, it's comfortable and things like that. I would not wear a shirt like this, however, if I were doing long distance backpacking, and especially if I were in a situation where I was trying to keep warm, because a cotton shirt, when it gets wet, is going to stick to my body, and that's going to cause problems. It's going to sap heat from me, and it's going to stay wet for a long time. So like I said, avoid cotton. It doesn't insulate. It takes a long time to dry once it gets wet and things like that. So some of your better options are things like merino wool, polyester, silk, polypropylene, so synthetic materials and things like that. They'll help you out with especially warmth and stuff like that in the winter times. So it should be tight fitting. If you can get it, because that way it traps air next to the skin. That insulates the body from cold, and also because it wicks moisture, you get some of that. If it's the only layer you're wearing, it will also help you with the cooling off as well. So base layers, depending on your situation, are going to come in different things. You're going to have lightweight, you're going to have midweight, you're going to have heavyweight. All right. And it depends on what kind of hiking and what season hiking you are doing. Obviously, the lightweight you're going to want in the summertime. Again, that's probably some of the times going to be the only layer you're wearing is that base layer. Okay. The midweight, you're getting into colder mornings, cold evenings if you're hiking, nighttime in your tent, things like that. And then the heavyweight, more for wintertime hiking, cold nights. And cold mornings and things like that. You're going to want a more heavier base layer and then throw other things on top. So talking about some of the actual types of base layers that you might want to consider. Merino wool, some of its pros and cons. It's a good odor fighter. It doesn't pick up the old body heat as much as some of the others can. It retains heat even when it gets wet. Merino wool is really good for that. So that's a really good base layer that if something fails on your outer layers and water gets in, or you have a leak in your tent that you didn't expect and the clothes you're going to wear for the day get wet, your merino wool base layer, even wet, you can still put it on. It's going to dry. It dries a little bit slower than the synthetic, so that's one of its cons, but it is going to eventually dry. But it will still, it's not going to pull that heat off of you like cottonwood or some of the other materials. It'll help keep you warm even when it's wet. So that's a biggie. It's very good in cold weather as a base. It can be a little pricey, is one of its drawbacks too. It can be. Synthetic materials like spandex, polyester, nylon, things like that, they all work really well. They're very readily available. That's one of their upswings, and you can get them almost inexpensively now at almost any store. Even the big box stores usually carry that kind of wicking sports shirts and things like that. You can get them. You know, I've got just regular ones I use for day hiking or just my training hikes and things like that, my walks and stuff like that. You can get them for $5-6, and they work fine. They feel comfortable. They wick. They do help with that kind of stuff. So they're very readily available. It's a definite plus. They're fairly inexpensive. They dry faster than merino wool or any of the other options. They're very fast drying because of their synthetic thing. They're not as odor resistant, and they can be fairly tough and durable and take a beating. So they're a decent option. And one of the other things you can think of, a lot of hikers kind of give it a pass for its main reason that it's very expensive, is silk. Silk is very good for dealing with cold. It helps keep your body warm. It's really good at that. It's not very odor resistant. It can be extremely pricey, and it is not very durable, so that's part of the problem. You get a silk outfit, it's probably good for little stuff, but it's probably not going to last a through hike or even a decent backpacking trip, because it's just not a tough material and things like that. So, but it is one of those that, you know, because of its soft, high comfort level, it is an option, and it does do the wicking. It does help keep your body insulated. It's just one I've never considered myself, but yeah, it's on the list of suggestions, so I put it out there. So the base layer, and again, that just kind of tells you that's your foundation. That's what you're going to put next to your skin. So it's going to be your underwear, the basic t-shirt. For me, again, like I've said before, that's all I wore sometimes for backpacking, is just that layer alone, underneath, regular pants, stuff like that. Now I've taken to wearing an actual shirt that goes over my base layer, and if it gets way too hot, I can take that off, no problem. It's a good shirt that vents and things like that, but that helps protect me from UV issues and things like that. But that's kind of the simple stuff on the old base layer. That's, there's not a whole lot to go over there, but it is one of those things that I did notice that a lot of beginning backpackers, oh yeah, base layer, okay, yeah, it's very important, but nobody ever explains exactly what a base layer is. So there you go. That's your base layer. That's what you're looking for, and some of the options you can kind of find out there, and some of them aren't very expensive, like I said. So base layers. What's your favorite base layer? Let me know at hikingforhealthca@gmail.com, or comments down below. Comments in any of the other social media stuff I post this fun thing on. And of course, a reminder that I am on Patreon. My Patreon channel is free. You do not have to subscribe to see the videos there. I'm kind of use it as a secondary backlog of the videos. In case YouTube has issues, you can also see the videos on Patreon. You don't have to subscribe. Any kind of subscription or donation you want to make would be greatly appreciated, and anything from my Patreon channel goes right back into my hiking. It's either for gear, for gas to get to places, food for trips, and literally just for hiking. I don't use it for anything else if I get anything out of that. So there you go. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.